So here's a little story about how a hot air balloon ride led to my divorce. So I grew up in Rochester, Michigan. It's a small town north of Detroit, and it's a great town. And one of the things I loved most about growing up there was on evenings when the weather was just right, the sky would be peppered with hot air balloons. And I loved it. So there was a field behind my house, and they would launch the balloons from that field, and I'd run over there, and they'd be pulling out the big fan, and the fabric was beautiful, and it'd flap as they were inflating it. And I would just watch in envy, and the passengers would jump into the basket, and off they'd float. And it would be magical. My dog didn't think it was magical, though. She would lose her mind when they went over the house. She would bark, but I always wanted to ride in a hot air balloon. So cut to 2017, and I'm living here in Northern Virginia, and I'm married to an alcoholic. We had been together about 12 years at this point, and I would imagine that being married to an alcoholic is very much like being on a hot air balloon. High highs, and some days you just can't get off the ground. Highs like when he would tell me, I'm going to stop drinking. And sometimes there were a few days that he could string it together, and I'd see a glimpse of the man that I had fallen in love with. But there were lots of lows. Lows like when he didn't come home one night, and I had to call all the hospitals in the area. I eventually found him in jail the next morning. Or I'd find empty liquor bottles tucked into drawers or my shoes, and the smell of bourbon just emanating from his pores. It was hard. It was really hard. And we tried everything. Correction, I tried everything. I went to therapy, I went to Al-Anon, I made him go to therapy, I made him go to AA, I made him go to outpatient treatment. He drank before he went to outpatient treatment every day. That was awesome. And then finally, he was court-ordered to go to inpatient treatment for 30 days in Wilmington. So I drop him off, and I pick him up 30 days later, and he is sober, and it's awesome. And I'm like, oh, we're fixed. Not quite. So I think, well, this is great. I'm happy. I'm going to plan this weekend for us. And I had heard about the Maryland Balloon Festival. And it was in August, and this was roughly like May. And so I thought, okay, that'll be great. I plan it. I booked the Airbnb. By Father's Day, he's drinking again. And, about this time, I had heard a quote that when you're truly done with something, when you just want to leave it behind, you don't feel loss, you don't feel grief, you just feel freedom. And I just felt sad and loss and grief and anger. I was not ready. I was not ready to give up. So I stuck it out, and I really wanted to go on that hot air balloon ride too, so I stuck it out, and come August, we head to Maryland for the weekend. And you have to be at the field really early to launch. You either launch in the morning or launch at night, and we had a morning slot. So we were there at like 6 a.m., and we got to blow up the balloon. I had a childhood dream realized. It was amazing. We met our captain and our co-captain, and we hop in the basket, and off we float. And it was magical. It was everything I imagined it would be. And it's peaceful and calm. There are a few things they don't tell you, though. One is that the burner is really hot. It's like right by your head, and it smells like kerosene or propane or whatever they use. And I was a little afraid my hair might catch on fire, Just a little. Also, my dog was onto something because the animals were not fans of the balloons. When we would go over, the deer would all like scatter, and that didn't feel awesome. And thirdly, there's not a set place to land. I had envisioned a field with a big X, and we were going to shoot for that. And granted, I probably should have asked these questions prior to then, but I didn't. So about 20 minutes in, the captain whispers over to the co-captain and then says to us, "Hey guys, the wind's picking up. We're gonna have to set her down soon, so keep an eye out for a good spot." I do not feel qualified for this job. So I look, but then 2 minutes later, he's like, "Oh God, the wind's really picking up. We really need to set it down." So great. He's like, "Oh, there's a cornfield." And the fourth thing they don't tell you is that as you're landing, you kind of need to avoid telephone wires and electrical lines so you don't electrocute yourself. So that was fun. So he picks out this cornfield, and I'm like, corn in August is 8 feet tall. This is not a good place to land. It's not going to be smooth at all. But he's the captain, so he says, "All right, we're coming in really fast, so it's going to be a bumpy landing." And I'm like, "Oh, this is getting better and better." So hold on tightly to the basket and stay low. So, I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Well, I followed directions. My ex did not. So we came in really fast and hit the ground with a thump, and he flips out of the basket into the cornfield. And he was 250 pounds, so guess what happens? The balloon shoots up with the rest of us, leaving him on the ground. And I'm like, and all I can do is wave. I tried not to laugh. It was funny. He was fine. But as I floated away from him, and as I left him behind, I had an overwhelming sense of freedom. Freedom. So about a half mile down the way, we land. We all stay in the basket. The chase van picks us up, and we head home. And after 13 years, I file for divorce. I move out, and I didn't feel loss. I did not feel grief. I just felt freedom. Thank you.